Her Majesty's Young Offenders Institution, HMP Aylesbury, is a young offenders institution situated in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire, England. It is located on the north side of the town centre, on Beerton Road, and is operated by Her Majesty's Prison Service. There has been a prison or a gaol of some description in Aylesbury since 1810. The current prison has been on its present site since 1847. It is of early Victorian design and was modelled on Reading County Gaol. The site was in an area of public buildings that including the workhouse, formerly the Tyndall Centre, and the Manor House Hospital. Since construction, the prison has gone through a variety of changes, starting as a county gaol, then becoming an adults women's prison in 1890, changing to a girls' borstal in the 1930s. And between 1959 and 1961 was an adult male prison, after which it became a male YOI, and since 1989 has held only male long-term prisoners, but that recently changed. In 1998, HMP Aylesbury was criticised after an inspection report highlighted its poor health regime, which saw the rapid turnover of 5 senior medical officers in 2 years. The report opened up a wider debate about the pay of medical staff in UK prisons compared to those in the NHS. In 2001, the Imam for HMP Aylesbury was suspended after allegations of inappropriate comments after the September 11th New York terror attacks. A year after this, a study of young offenders' diets at Aylesbury, conducted by Surrey University, found that adding vitamins, minerals and other nutritional elements to the diets of young offenders remarkably reduced their antisocial behaviour. HMP Aylesbury Prison was back in the headlines in 2007 after it was revealed to have a higher rate of self-harm by inmates than any other young offenders institution in England. Following the introduction of the prison's ACCT, Assessment, Care in Custody and Teamwork system, the rate of self-harm has reduced significantly. In December 2008, police officers and probation service tornado teams were called in to contain a disturbance at Aylesbury Prison, officially described as concerted indiscipline. The incident lasted 6 hours and involved a number of inmates who were taking part in Eid celebrations. A number of these inmates were charged with prison mutiny. In November 2009, a prison officer from HMP Aylesbury was jailed after it was emerged that she had become pregnant after having a sexual relationship with an inmate. The prison officer was also convicted of smuggling 3 mobile phones into HMP Aylesbury. Prison officer who had a baby after conducting an affair with a young offender in his cell was jailed in 2009. Kelly Ann McDade, who was 31, gave birth to a boy in February after the relationship with Nelson Delgado, who had been listed as a dangerous prisoner by officials. Miss McDade told colleagues at the Young Offenders Institute at Buckinghamshire that she had become pregnant after a holiday relationship. She had to resign after she was caught on CCTV opening the 21-year-old Mr. Delgado's cell door when all doors in the institute had to be closed for the night in August 2008. Judge Christopher Tyra called her behaviour disgraceful as he jailed her for 30 months at Aylesbury Crown Court. "You engaged in a wholly improper sexual relationship with an inmate," the judge said. "He was in your care." He said Miss McDade would have been trained to report such matters to her superior, and added that the affair could have placed her female colleagues at risk from other offenders who knew about it. They might have expected the other female officers to be susceptible to similar approach. The consequences could have been very serious. Judge Tyra added, "Love is not an excuse." Miss McDade of Aylesbury admitted misconduct in a public office and trying to smuggle 3 mobile phones into another young offender institution where her lover was moved to after the affair came to light. When her home was searched, police found a mobile phone with a message from Mr. Delgado, whom she visits regularly, reading, "I love you, my wife." They had planned to set up home together when they were both freed and bring up their son together, who at the time was 9 months old. Miss McDade had been employed by the Young Offenders Institute for 3 years when she started the relationship with Mr. Delgado in 2008. Nigel Ogborn, who was prosecuting, said that when the prison governor found out Mr. Delgado was the father, he said the relationship could have caused a massive breach of security. Richard Germain, defending Miss McDade, told the court, "There is no doubt it was an inappropriate relationship, but Miss McDade would say, you can't help who you fall in love with." Mr. Germain said the relationship had been going on for several months. McDade became pregnant. As a young offenders institution, HMY Aylesbury holds long-term male inmates between the ages of 18 and 21. Accommodation comprises of single cells in several residential wings and one segregation unit. Currently, due to special measures, the prison is only operating 4 of the 7 residential units. There are full and part-time education programs at the YOI, which range from basic and key skills courses up to art, French and sociology at A level and physical education. Vocational courses and work programs include construction, painting and decorating, bricklaying, motor vehicle mechanics, industrial and general cleaning, laundry, catering and gathering and waste management. Young offenders also have the opportunity to pursue award-based courses including the Duke of Edinburgh Award. In February 2013, HMY Aylesbury appeared in an ITV documentary focusing on the lives of inmates and officers. In 2017, a serious violent incident took place involving many inmates. Young offenders and prison officers were injured and some even needed hospital treatment. In 2018, another riot occurred and it hospitalised 4 prison officers. Prisoners were frustrated because they spent the whole week locked in their cells and only had one chance a week to shower. Violet Bland Suffolgate, imprisoned and force-fed in 1912. She wrote of her experiences in Votes for Women. Kitty Byron, who was convicted in 1902 for murdering her aunt, Arthur Reginald Baker, was released from Aylesbury in December 1908. Edith Carew, who was convicted in 1897 in the British court for Japan in Yokohama for murdering by poisoning her husband, Walter Carew. Miss Carew was transferred from Yokohama via Hong Kong in 1897 and released in 1910. Mathilde Carey, a French Renaissance agent during World War II who turned double agent. Miss Carey was held at Aylesbury for the last years of the war, where she acted as an informant against other detainees. Miss Carey was deported to France after the war ended. Constance Markowitz, the first woman MP, commuted a death sentence in 1916 following the Easter Rising and was released in 1917. Florence Maybrick, a former United States citizen who was imprisoned at Aylesbury for murdering her considerably older English husband. Miss Maybrick was released in 1904. Aline McKenney, author of Borstal, was an inmate from 1949 to 1951. Jade Braithwaite was at HMY Aylesbury for a time after being convicted of the murder of 16-year-old Ben Kinsella. He was ordered to serve a minimum of 19 years. If you'd like to see more about Mr. Braithwaite, we have a documentary on him, so please check it out if you have some time. Ryan Herbert was transferred from HMY Aylesbury from HMP Stoke-on-Heath in 2012. He was convicted in 2008 of killing Sophie Lancaster and sentenced to 15.5 years. The prison opened as a county gaol in 1847 and has served as a women's prison, a borstal and an adult male prison before becoming a long-term male offenders institution for 17 to 21-year-olds, serving sentences up to life. In 1989, Aylesbury was designated as a long-term young offenders institution. It held the longest sentenced young adult males in the English prison system. A Wing has 68 cells. B Wing has 68 general population cells. C Wing has 66 induction cells. D Wing has 61 general population and induction cells. E Wing has 81 general population cells. F Wing was a poor copers and sex offenders treatment program wing. And G Wing was a general population wing. The regime at Aylesbury aims to provide a purposeful activity for young prisoners in the following areas: a barbering salon running NVQ2 Level 2 diplomas, construction including painting and decorating and bricklaying for C Skills Level 2, full and part-time education run in conjunction with Milton Keynes College, offering a wide range of courses including English and Maths up to Level 2, personal and social development, ITQ, cookery and art, mentoring schemes allowing young prisoners to have support whilst returning to custody, motor and vehicle mechanics in purpose-built factory up to Level 3, offending behaviour courses including enhanced thinking skills ETS, controlled anger and learning to manage it CALM, drug treatment courses and sex offending programs including SOTP and becoming new me. Physical education, with the opportunity for award-based courses such as the YMCA Fitness Instructors Award, the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, and a wide variety of recreational activities. Radio station and programs created by prisoners, laundry, kitchens, gardens, waste management and general cleaning. Resettlement groups offering information on job clubs, housing, etc. Staff mess delivering the MVQ in professional cookery up to level 3. The prison was given an inspection in the summer of 2019 and they had the following to say. HMP Aylesbury is a young offenders institution YOI holding male prisoners between 18 and 20. The overwhelming majority are serving sentences from 4 years to life imprisonment. The establishment was last inspected in 2017, at which time we raised serious concerns across a range of issues, but expressed particular worry about safety, for which we awarded our lowest grading of poor. The YOI has since been placed into special measures by HM Prison and Probation Service, and as a consequence of this, the roll has been halved from around 400 to just 200. At the time of the previous inspection, we judged performance in the remaining 3 of our healthy prison tests to be not sufficiently good. On this occasion, we found that in all 4 tests, the appropriate grade was not sufficiently good. So while there had been an improvement in safety, the rest of the grades remained the same. However, it would be quite wrong to infer that there had been no progress made in the time since the last inspection. What we found was that there had been some distinct movement and indeed some improvements within the gradings, but not sufficient to raise any of them to the acceptable standard of reasonably good. In terms of safety, the overall rate of violence had increased, but the seriousness of most of it had declined. It was quite possible that this was a consequence of introducing some free flow in the prison. This has made it easier for prisoners to gain access to one another to fight, but at the same time, more likely to be in the sight of our officers who are able to intervene and de-escalate situations before they become very serious. This is a phenomenon that we have seen elsewhere. However, it was not possible to say whether this was definitely the case at Aylesbury, because there was insufficient analysis of the violence and no clear violence reduction action plan. This was one of our key concerns flowing from the inspection. We were also concerned by the quality of the relationship between staff and prisoners, with a significant number of the latter saying they had been verbally abused or victimised by staff. There was some evidence that key working was beginning to have an impact, but it remained the case that far more needed to be done to improve consultation, focus properly on issues of equality and diversity, handle complaints more effectively, and improve the regime so that it could be a far more greater opportunity for meaningful contact and relationships to develop between staff and prisoners. The regime had been inadequate for Aylesbury for many years, and it remained the case that, for much the week, there had been no evening association. Time out of cell was poor and often unpredictable, and there was no opportunity for prisoners to eat together. For these very basic socialisation processes to be absent or poor in a prison holding young adults, it was clearly unacceptable and needed to be addressed. The fact that the population has halved while staff levels have remained the same should have enabled more positive changes to have been made. There have been some progress, but more needed to be done. At the last inspection, we found that the nationally mandated process for assessing the risks presented by and the needs of prisoners, OASIS, was not working as it should. We made the main recommendation that the concerted action should be taken to reduce the OASIS backlog, but inexplicably, considering the risk presented by the population at Aylesbury, this had not been acted upon. We found that over a quarter of the prisoners did not have an OASIS at all, and too few of the remainder had received proper or timely reviews. Staff tried to work around these failures in a pragmatic way, but could not replicate the comprehensive nature of the approved but failing national process. In recent times, HN Inspector of Prisons has frequently reported that as a process of risk management and sentencing progression, OASIS is showing worrying signs of systematic failure, in some places verging on collapse. We have been told on many occasions that when the Offender Management in Custody (OMIC) program is fully implemented, with responsibility for completion transferred to Aylesbury, the situation will improve. I had little confidence that this would be the case. It was clear that the offender management unit did not have the resources to absorb the extra work. These weaknesses form one of the key concerns identified by this inspection, and I trust that, unlike our main recommendation in the last inspection, it will not be ignored. It is clear to me that Aylesbury was an institution in transition. It was reassuring that in this instance, I was able to see some positive impact in the prison being in special measures. The halving of the roll, closure of wings pending refurbishment, and attempts to relax the regime had had a positive impact. It was easy for me to see a real sense of ownership and teamwork in the support of the measures that were being taken to improve performance. However, I was concerned by the suggestions that there might be plans to return the roll to its previous number of around 400, but without increasing staff numbers. If this were to happen, and I hope it does not, at least in the short term, I would be very worried about the potential impact on the treatment of and conditions experienced by the prisoners. There were some positive signs in the progress of Aylesbury, an establishment that has experienced some very challenging times. It would be a pity if all that progress were put into jeopardy. For the moment, I would encourage the leadership that they continue on their current path and to build on the findings of this inspection into their current plans. HMP Aylesbury, which specialised in people convicted of violent crimes, has been thrown into chaos by a policy change introduced by Dominic Raab's Ministry of Justice to cope with a national rise of inmate numbers, an official watchdog has found. HMP Aylesbury was suddenly and without sufficient consultation, notice or support changed into a Category C training prison. With the rising number of prisoners needed accommodation elsewhere in the prison's estate, hundreds of Category C or low risk offenders have been brought into the jail. About 23% of the prison population remain men aged 18 to 21, convicted of violent crimes and serving long prison sentences. The change comes as the government prepares for the overall prison population to rise from 84,000 to 94,000 by March 2025. Pressure on the prison estate has led to police cells being used for prisoners. Last week, the Ministry of Justice began rolling out 1,000 rapid deploy cells across the prison estate to boost jail capacity. Charlie Taylor, the Chief Inspector of Prisons, said Aylesbury had been struggling with its existing role, but was now a chaotic prison, which was releasing prisoners with little or no work to reduce their risk of committing crimes again. Challenges have been compounded by this sudden and chaotic redesignation to a Category C training jail, coupled with extreme staffing problems. The prison needs significant and immediate support from the prison service to mitigate the level of risk it presents, not only for the prisoners held there, but also for the community into which high-risk offenders are being released, with little to no work to reduce their risk to re-offending, he said. Inspectors in November and December found a shortage in staff in all grades and disciplines at Aylesbury. This included access to healthcare, time out of the cell, education, skills and work and rehabilitation services. In healthcare, the situation was so dire that the prison service was unable to send prisoners over the age of 40 to the jail because they could not be safely cared for in the jail. Nearly 40% of prisoners were unemployed and had less than an hour a day out of their cells, while many prisoners told inspectors they were unable to shower every day. Those in employment, meanwhile, were frequently unable to benefit from this because of staff shortage or broken equipment. A Ministry of Justice spokesperson said, "We are investing £155 million more every year into the probation service. As this report notes, we are making real progress in providing stable accommodation to vulnerable prison leavers." Andrew Nielsen, director of the campaigns at Howard League for Penal Reform, said, "This report reveals while growing the prison population with little thought for consequences creates more problems for everyone. An understaffed prison, which has failed repeatedly to help young adults move on from crime, has now been placed under even greater pressure because the government is resorting to panic measures to respond to rising numbers. The result has been disastrous, with little to no support to prepare people for safe release." A group of men have been jailed after they took part in a violent group beating in the yard of a young offenders prison. Tyler Fulbell, who was 20, and Jordan Muengilu, 20, both of HMY Aylesbury, and Shimar Davis, who was 22, of HMP Dovegate in Uttoxeter, have all been jailed for a violent assault that took place in the Aylesbury Young Offenders Institution. On April 4th, 2021, the trio took part in a group beating on the prison's exercise yard, violently attacking and kicking their victim. At a hearing in Wickham Magistrates Court in May 25th that year, the 3 inmates all pleaded guilty to charges of affray. Affray involves the use of threat or violence towards another person that is so severe that the bystander at the scene would fear for their own safety. After the 3 offenders admitted the assault, each was sentenced to serve additional time in the young offenders institutions. Mr. Forbell was sentenced to 16 weeks imprisonment, while Mr. Davies and Mr. Miligu both received 14 weeks. All 3 men were also ordered to pay £128 in costs. Inspectors returning to HMP Aylesbury found a prison thrown into chaos by changes to its role made in response to a national prison population pressure. HMP Aylesbury previously housed young men aged 18 to 21 convicted of violent crimes and serving long sentences. But with the rising number of prisoners needing accommodation elsewhere in the estate, it had been suddenly and without sufficient consultation, notice or support been redesignated as a Category C training establishment. Issues relating to this transition underpinned or were key contributory factors in almost all of the prison's problems identified in this inspection. Charlie Taylor, Chief Inspector of Prisons, said, "Aylesbury has been a prison in difficulty for some time. Successive inspections have found it struggling with its existing role as a young offenders institution, but those challenges have been compounded by this sudden and chaotic redesignation to a Category C training jail coupled with extreme staffing problems. The prison needs significant and immediate support from the prison service to mitigate the level of risk it represents for not only prisoners held there, but also for the community in which the high-risk offenders are being released into, with little or no work to reduce their reoffending. A shortage of staff in all grades and disciplines was very evident at Aylesbury. This included access to healthcare, time out of cell, education, skills and work, and rehabilitation services. In healthcare, the situation was so dire that the prison service was unable to send prisoners over the age of 40 to Aylesbury. Nearly 40% of the prisoners who were unemployed had less than an hour out of their cell. This was so limited that many prisoners told us that they were unable to shower every day. Those in employment, meanwhile, were frequently unable to benefit from this because of staff shortages or broken equipment. Even when the prisoners were able to attend workshops, they were not being taught in the standard they needed to prepare them for employment upon release. Personal protection equipment was not enforced in construction shops, and food handling and hygiene standards were not enforced in catering. Work to reduce reoffending was in flux. 70% of the population were assessed as high risk or serious harm to the public. There were only limited offender management or progression opportunities, virtually no key work, and hardly any support for resettlement upon release, something which has now been a priority following the transition. Safe release planning was undoubtedly compromised by the prison offender management high caseload, and problems with allocating cases promptly to community offender managements in areas like London and the South East. Mr. Taylor said, "Until Aylesbury receives the support it desperately needs to improve, it will remain a high-risk institution."